Good Monday morning, you guys. Oh my gosh. If I'm echoing, I'm in my new house. Okay. So I already know and I'm aware of it. But you guys listening to Author Talk with me, Aimee, Russell, Valerie, and our lovely author guest today is David. So I know Russell's dying, right? So let's just dive into this conversation about my big move that happened. So, as you all know, last Monday after the show, I went and I closed on my new house. I am in my current office in said new house it's just under boxes. Okay. So we moved on Tuesday. We're still currently in the process of moving stuff over from the other house. But Russell has always told me on this show, do not do home reno or improvements or whatever with your spouse. Me and Josh have done a lot of those things together. We generally get along pretty good. A move is not one of those things that is our forte. Okay. Because we have one way of doing it and Josh has one way of communicating. So David, my husband is a chemical engineer and he uses that lingo that I don't understand. And so
He's a very smart man, except when in dealing with his beautiful wife.
there you go. Yes.
He seems to
So
lose battles with her.
this is a true statement. So needless to say, we decided to divide and conquer when it came to unpacking, and we would move said objects or whatever from house together. But it quickly became a fun little rant of, I hate that you say that to me, and what I say is not important because it's not your engineering way of doing it. And it quickly became these kinds of conversations, which has been a lot of fun to kind of have. We don't have those conversations very often, so it's fun to kind of have. And I can poke fun at it because today is actually our anniversary. We've been married 8 years and we've been together 11 years. So today I can actually do that and talk crap about him. It's justified to do that today of all days. But we are here. We've had hiccups and fun times.
We have to put this in context. David, this is a man who was forced to sell motorcycles so she could buy an SUV. So this is the context that this poor man is in.
Okay, wait a minute. When he always tells this story wrong, David. That's not true. Okay, okay, and okay. We have two daughters. They're 13 months apart. We have a 4 and a 3-year-old. Okay, they're soon to be 5 and 4. We needed a bigger vehicle. I had a compact SUV at the time. Now Josh drives that car. Josh is my husband, and he had 2 motorcycles. And he was all like, oh, well, I don't need 2. I like this one better. I will sell it. Russell doesn't believe this story. And he believes that it's because I also got a bigger SUV at that time, that it was to fund my SUV. And it was not. Okay. And to be fair, he also calls me careless because my kids are so close apart, which is funny coming from a man that has more children than I do. So it's just one of those things. That's Russell in a nutshell. Okay. So you can't take what he said seriously by any means. So anyways, but this whole process has been a lot of fun. My appliances were delivered, in which we also had hiccups in that I had to deal with. But Josh dealt with the movers for the most part, which made it fun. The girls have the entire upstairs, which they have loved. One of the downsides of this whole moving experience from me, and my husband says it's just because I'm a girl, I have never seen a black widow spider. I hope none of you have either. And I have seen several since moving here. And I don't know if that's a curse or what, because they are massive and scary. Okay, I don't do spiders. I'll do anything else but spiders. So yes, I made him spray like 500 times around the house to kill those things. And scorpions are not my forte either. They just, I don't know. They remind me of the Scorpion King movie. If you watch The Mummy Returns, it reminds me of The Rock. And I'm like, well, you're not that. No. So there's that. There are some cool bugs, though. There are these 2 stick bugs that me and my daughters have named. One is like a big green one, and one actually looks like a twig, right? So we have Gilbert and Twiggy are the ones that we've named, and I don't know what has happened to them, but they like to play dead. So I should have just called them possums because they're not really dead. They just play dead. So it's been a big learning curve and an experience in and of itself. So it's been a lot of fun, but also happy Father's or belated Father's Day to all the fathers out there. All of you guys are amazing and you well deserve your day. So it's been a journey. to say the least, my week/weekend. So what did everybody else do this weekend? I hope it was eventful. Houston's supposed to get a lot of rain, so I hope that none of that affects any of you guys like it's probably going to. So who wants to dive into their weekend first? I don't know.
David. All right, I'm
David. That way I won't pick on you because I won't think you're trying to be quiet.
I'm just listening,
Yeah, well, you don't get to do that on the show.
So Father's Day weekend, my wife got COVID over the weekend. Pretty sick. So she's recovering though, nicely. She's got a doctor and a nurse in the family, so we're in good shape.
Nice.
And great Father's Day with one of my daughters. My other daughter is actually in Houston. So we had a great day. So I'm wishing my wife a speedy recovery.
Yes. Oh,
that means that he was a nurse this weekend, so he did not receive the rebuke that I avoided this weekend as well.
Well,
that's what that means.
I hope that he's smart enough to avoid those situations.
You would think.
Oh my goodness! I hope your wife starts to feel better soon. COVID is an awful thing, so I hope she starts to feel better.
Yep.
Valerie, what did you do?
Well, my mom is visiting from Centerville, and so she has not been on a little vacay in a while, and she had been pretty sick with shingles, and she's finally starting to feel better. So we took her to the beach.
Nice.
We took her to the beach, and it was great. We had crawfish, we had margaritas, we just sat in the shade, the whole time, watched an amazing sunset out on the bay. Just it was really great to take her mind off all that before she has to go back home to Centerville.
Nice. I love it. Did you guys didn't get sunburned? We all didn't cook in the sun?
Yes, I am so sunburned. I guess because I've been teaching and doing all these things so much, I haven't been out in the sun as much as I like. And so I was like, I'm just going to soak it up. I'm just going to, and I did, but it's okay. It's a Texas thing.
You soaked a little too much when you turned.
Yeah, just a little too much. But it doesn't even matter like how much sunscreen you put. You're like reapply, and then you always miss some spot. It's always like over here, over there, but it's okay. That's what aloe vera is for.
Hey, it could be worse. I noticed this the other day, and I will poke fun at myself because it's just, I don't know. That's how life goes. You got to be able to poke fun at yourself, right? My feet are really tan. So I have the reverse of a farmer's tan. My feet are really tan and my legs are really white and my arms are tan. So it's like the reverse of a farmer's tan. So I would almost rather be burnt because at least then it would be even.
Well, the thing is, I'm even. I'm all even finally. I don't have the flip-flop tan or, you know what I'm talking about?
Okay.
Just like you're saying, the farmer's tan. We don't have, I'm an even person here, which is good. And I feel very summery. So it's a nice feeling. And I got a good dose of vitamin D to last me all through the rest of the weeks of my teaching. So it was good.
There you go. And you had margaritas. So hopefully you had enough for you.
Crawfish. It was the last crawfish of the season pretty much. So we had to dive in.
You've got to do it. All right, Russell, I want to hear about this raft that you have avoided this week.
Okay. Now, the first thing I've got to say, David, I'm in Atlanta. I'm not in Houston. And I have a question. When they made Siri, did they put in some kind of devil or some kind of sadistic part of the algorithm? Because I got to tell you, Siri loves when I'm in some part of Georgia that I have no idea where I am or how to get anywhere else. And you ask Siri for a map and it says, oh, there's a problem now. And when did they put the word "oh" to make you feel better about the problem that now you don't have a map? Siri has kept me lost all weekend in Georgia. And I had to say that before anything. And now Siri's trying to talk to me on the phone. So I don't know. I just think it's evil.
Okay.
I had a great interview with a podcast in Lancaster, England, that my incredible publicist, Mickey, set up, and it was really interesting. They did not expect answers the way I received them. They read their questions. David, you will find that this show is a spontaneous show. You'll say something and I want to go, or Valerie or Aimee will want to go down a tangent on it.
I'm already expecting that.
Yes. But they did not expect my answers. This week, I played pickleball all weekend. And last week, David, I made the mistake during a game on Sunday telling my wife to get out of the way when she was my partner. And I got to tell you, I paid for it all week. And she, I'd say something. She'd say, "Oh, you're going to tell me to get out of the way again?" So this week I was good. I didn't say any of that. She played much better, by the way, so I didn't have to. But I'm not saying anything.
I was with an orthopedic surgeon this weekend, and he said that pickleball is a dream come true for him.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I've had 4 injuries because of pickleball. And I've got to the point when we're playing, if someone's trying to play through a problem at my age, can you imagine that? I always say, you shouldn't be doing that. You should just take a few weeks off. And always I get, I can't miss. But it's crazy. I want to thank the people listening to us. We're top 10 independent book podcast in America. We're very grateful to our listeners. Most people, David, don't listen to us during the live show right now, but they listen to us on the podcast during the week, while they're working out, while they're driving to work, and we want to thank them. Aimee has changed everything, so it's very easy. Even I, after she changed it, could find us on the podcast channels. Before that, I had trouble. Aimee, how do people find us?
Before then, Russell had trouble. I mean, okay. Anyway,
it's true. True.
I know. Russell has been just having hurdles that he's been jumping through. Either pickleball, injuries, or finding us for sure.
Technology.
I know. It's just, it's yes. But no, you can find us anywhere that you can find a podcast. So my go-to places right off the top of my head is Amazon, Apple, Google Play, Spotify, all of those other ones I'm not mentioning. Good Pods is one also. But you can go and you can listen to us. Look for the Crimson, Red, and Gold because, one, that's my favorite, and I was super selfish and picked those, and they stand out. All of our episodes or seasons, however you want to look at it, we really just do episodes. We go live every Monday morning at 10, and we don't miss it. If a holiday falls on that day, you bet that we've pre-recorded that, and that show is still going out. So,
and you know my story. Aimee once did a show while she was in labor, David. Can you believe it?
Impressive.
Very. Total badass.
Okay, he always says that, and yet again, I have to clarify this story. I was not on the video live in labor. That would be really inappropriate. I was in the comment section, and I had someone fill in for me, or Sandy fill in for me, and I was pacing my room while they were live, and I was commenting, and Russell was losing his mind, okay? So it's definitely one of those things. But I know Russell also wants to talk about the 80-20 rule, right? Because he is becoming a vandal at not using it. So 80-20 rule.
Hard. It is hard once you start working on promoting your book to not do it.
Yes, because
can you explain what the 80-20 rule is for our listeners, please?
You want to toot your own horn, right? Like, oh, look at me, I've been over here, and I'm running a discount on my book, buying my book. You want to do all of these things, right? And so it's really hard to go against that and not do that, right? So 80% of what you should be posting is sharing either articles that you've been in and not necessarily mentioning to buy your book, right? Sharing things that you've done, where you are if you're writing another book. There's my daughter. If you're writing another book, those kinds of things is really what you want to do. And 20% actually selling your book, right? Now, there are some people that'll be like, oh, well, I'm going to go on TikTok and mention about buying my book, and it does really wonders. TikTok is great for specific genres. It doesn't fit all genres, right? But you always have to remember social media was meant to be social. So you want to engage and be social with your followers and your readers to keep them engaged in whatever other avenues you're going to go down in your writing career, right? You don't want them to just be like, hey, give me all your money, buy my book 500 times, right? that gets annoying. You don't want to be sold to. You want to buy because you feel like there's a need or it's something that you're really going to enjoy, right? So you want to keep to that as much as possible, which is what the 80-20 rule is. So don't overshare that, like, hey, my book's on promotion over here, and then it's over here, and it's over here. Share articles that you've been in, podcasts that you've done talking about your book, what up and coming for your books, or you just as a writer. All of those things make it more conversational, kind of like the show. Big conversation is really what you want it to be. Every now and then we'll talk about things that we all have going on and where you can go to find it, but it's mostly just keeping them up to date and what all is going on. So I'm going to cross my fingers for you, Russell.
Well,
but
and I think that's a great,
so
yeah, that's a great theory, because everybody, if the more like you would do that, people would just kind of like push you to the back of the mind, like, I already heard that, I don't care anymore. You know, why are you interesting? I feel like you're just in my face, you know, and then they don't get to know you as an author. Also, they don't know, like, you know, what's your story, what's your purpose, what motivated you, all these different things. And so, you know, by telling your backstory, then that's going to intrigue the readers.
Yeah. Well, it makes it where you have loyal readers. So whatever you put out, they want to read from you, right? Even if you just put one book out, right? I always think people have multiple books in them, but if you ever just put one book out, right? If you keep engaging with those people, you're going to find new interesting things and perspectives, and then they will also refer your book to other people, right? And that's the best way to sell a book, is it's referred by somebody else than by you, right? Yeah. And so you have to kind of do those things, and it's hard. You have to get in the mindset of a consumer. So if I'm going to follow an author, why am I following them? Well, because maybe I read one of their books and I liked it, so I want to see what else is going on, right? They're not generally selling their books. They're running ads to sell their books. They're mostly just engaging with their readers, which is really what you want to do. So, Russell,
and you know, even in Russell and David, y'all probably knows, when you are doing presentations, those aren't the questions that your guests want to hear. They want to hear, like, this character, where did it come from? Or, you know, all these different things. They want to know. I mean, even if you did a little blurb like that on your author Facebook page or on your social media, you know, like, it's like, have Russell's main character, have you met Marilyn? Maybe you don't want to, you know, just like little, you know, teasers and fun stuff like that would be such a great way to, you know, really engage and just that's just part, you know, and then they're not gonna like be like turned off.
Yeah. So David, background on everybody here. All of you, so Russell, you, David, Valerie, you guys are all authors. I have not written a book. I do book marketing and publicity is what I do. Social media is one of our sweet spots that we do, just so you know. But so that's why Russell asks me these crazy things. But all of them are authors. They've all written. Valerie is a children's book author, and Russell does murder, mystery, suspense, psychological thrillers is what Russell writes. So you're in good hands over here. They can have a much deeper author conversation than I can. I can just tell you how to market your book. So, but with all that being said, Valerie, I'm dying to get David talking about his book.
Absolutely.
And his background. So take it away, Valerie.
All right. David, can you please share, I guess, your background for our listeners? Because I feel like that is like the most important part of like building on your experience as an author because of your background.
Yeah, I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, but spent most of my time elsewhere. I spent most of my career at Stanford in Northern California. I have been a transplant doctor my entire professional career. Amazing. I led transplant programs. I took care of a lot of sick people, and basically left the front lines of transplantation in 2016 for a variety of personal and professional reasons. And professionally, I turned to doing healthcare related consulting in the transplant arena and writing books. And so I kind of split my time between those two professional activities as well. I'm married a nurse, and we have two daughters, one in finishing college and one going to college in August. And we're back home in New Orleans now. I didn't live there for 26 years and desperately wanted to go back home. New Orleans is very much in my blood.
So as you transitioned into a new career, you know, when did your impetus to become an author happen?
About halfway through my time at Stanford, I started writing in a journal every night because I was the kind of a doctor that was walking around the hospital and I felt like there was a little person on my shoulder, and I kept on turning to that little person and saying, "Are you getting all this? This is amazing." I was completely fascinated not only by the patient stories that I saw, but also the other people that worked in the hospital fascinated me. A lot of characters, a lot of rich characters in there. And so about that same time that I started scribbling in my journal, I started taking writing courses at night at Stanford, and really caught the bug for it. So published a book in 2021, which was memoir about my experience as a transplant physician, the emotional ups and downs, called Exhale. And then this newest book that just came out last week is a novel called All That Really Matters, that follows a heart and lung transplant surgeon protagonist who has a steep rise in his career and then gets himself into a bit of trouble.
Oh. So how was that experience, I guess, going from writing a memoir to a fiction novel? Because for me, I have like a little bit more experience on the nonfiction side as a journalist, and then becoming a children's author. That was like, whoa, this is a journey. So I'm sure, like, how was it for you to go from a memoir to a fiction, whole entire like novel, not even this like something small, a short story? This is huge.
Liberating. I loved it. Frankly, my third book that I'm under contract to write, and I'm writing right now, is actually back to nonfiction. And I had forgotten the constraints that you live in nonfiction. I really loved being able to, as they say, tell the truth with a pack of lies. And I really enjoyed the freedom that fiction gave me to explore a lot of themes, the morality and ethics of what we do, the issues related to healthcare, some of the things that I saw that I couldn't exactly put into my memoir without offending a lot of people. I felt like I could explore the whole gamut in my novel, because everything that's in that book, while fiction, I saw in the hospital in one way or the other.
Which makes probably your story come alive even better and relatable, because these characters have so many, true to the fact, aspects about it. And then tell us about your main character, please.
So Joe Bosco is the only child of a Nobel Prize laureate, Holocaust survivor, and a mom who is a book editor at Simon & Schuster. And they, as their only child, had very high expectations of him, and he meets them mostly, and so has a very steep rise in his career, but then starts looking in the mirror and seeing himself as godlike figure, and that's never a good thing for folks like us, and starts getting himself into some trouble, developing some bad habits, and I spend a large part of the book exploring that and then trying to get him out, to see if he can get out of it. A lot of the story is a love story, really, because he's got a romantic interest that he developed in medical school, who's also a physician, but has a very different experience as a female doctor. She's a research scientist and a very different kind of doctor than my main character, Joe Bosco, is. And their relationship suffers, as many relationships do, when folks do this kind of work. I saw a lot of that in the hospital. Interpersonal relationships, marriages, suffering, those kinds of things. And I wanted to bring that to the page.
As a divorce lawyer, I saw a lot of that too.
I bet you did.
Russell, do you have any questions at this point where we're talking about the
I do have a question, Valerie. I'm so predictable. I want to go to your webpage. So I love this because it was succinct. And I want to know, is this the central element to the central theme underlying the book? It's I always ask my patients the following question when first learning that they needed a transplant to survive. What would you do if today was your last day?
Yeah, it was a kind of a signature question of mine. I think I asked it over 10,000 times, and I wasn't looking for a specific answer in my own patients. I was looking to see how they thought. when people come to see us for a transplant, we already know that they want to live. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. But I wanted to know why they wanted to live. So when I asked folks those questions, it was the education of a lifetime, because not one of them said, I want to work a little bit harder. I want to make a little bit more money. I want to have more success. None of them said that, and it's all about the interpersonal relationships, their family, their friends, their faith. And so that actually spilled over into my life, because I took what I learned from them and tried to focus more. And part of the reason I left the front lines of medicine in 2016 is I wanted to actually be true to that mission. I wanted to actually spend more time on what I call the 3 F's, which are family, friends, and faith. And I think all of those reasons got me out of the hospital and actually enriched my life quite a bit. And so these days I'm more coach than quarterback. And so when I see teams that are struggling and individuals that are struggling in the healthcare workforce, I try to get them back to those core values that I learned, frankly, from patients. They taught me.
Mm-hmm. And how about, is it incorporated into your story as well?
Very much so. I mean, I'm terrible at titling books. I just can't do it for whatever reason. And, at the end of the day, my editor and agent actually said, what does this guy want? What is he trying to figure out? And somebody in the room said, he's trying to figure out really all that really matters to him. And I said, there it is. Let's just call it all that really matters, because this guy is going on a journey that many of us do. I do. Maybe you guys do too, where you're really trying to figure out how you should spend your time, because it is limited. And I saw that every day in the hospital. Are we going to spend more time, social media and other things, or are we going to spend, more time really devoted to the things that really matters? And that's why we titled the book that way.
Mm-hmm. And how's the response been since it's been out?
It's really been great. I've been gratified. Just, it got released on Tuesday, June 11th. So it's been out less than a week, but it's really been gratifying. Folks are reading it and sending me messages. And, that's the public part of what we do. We spend our time alone for 3 years, and then suddenly folks are reading our stuff, and, they're seeing things in the book that I wasn't sure that folks were going to see. And, one of my friends is Michael Lewis, the author. I went to high school with him, and kind of said, he kind of told me when I first started writing that the reader's going to tell you what the book's about. You're not going to tell them what the book's about. And I'm experiencing that wholeheartedly right now.
Oh, that's amazing. And then how do you, so you said you've already got a nonfiction book. How did that come about that you're going to skip into nonfiction again?
Well, we all write about what we're obsessed about, right? And one of my current obsessions is identity. Actually, it's not a current obsession. It's been one for a while. What do we see when we look in the mirror? And particularly one that I've struggled with is religious identity. And I come from a very, I would say, ambiguous, confused religious background, and struggled with it much of my life. So I'm going to delve as deeply as I can into not only my family's background, but also my impression of religion, what role it's played in my life, and what was missing when I didn't really have one, and get into that rather deeply. And I'm also interested in the role that religion and faith takes in the practice of medicine, because I saw a lot of near-death experiences. I had people come back from being dead, actually being dead, and telling me all sorts of things that a reader might be interested in. So I'm knee deep in that right now, not only in the research phase, but also the writing of it.
That sounds 100% intriguing for sure. Because I feel like, people take that for granted almost, like, especially in the medical field, and you're probably impacted every day.
Yeah, you are. It's interesting. Doctors, I think, divide themselves up into groups, and you can see it. Those that don't believe in religion, don't believe in God, it's not scientific, there's no evidence for it. That's one group. And then another group, I think it's a smaller group, says that how could you not believe in all of this? given what we see every day. And it's interesting, the intersection between medicine and science and faith. And it's something I've always been interested in, even before religion was part of my life.
That sounds like that's going to be an incredible moment of reflection as well.
No doubt about it. It's taken. This one's going to take really digging deep, and I'm in the process of doing that. So.
Great.
David, I have a couple of questions. First, what was the most surprising or shocking responses from readers, totally unexpected, personally, that you've heard?
To this second book, then?
Yes.
That I was a romantic. I guess the folks that know me, may not necessarily think that, but there's actually quite a bit of romance in there. And the reason I wanted to put, a love story into this is because it's exactly what happens to people like this. What's the first thing that suffers when we don't have good work-life balance? Our interpersonal relationships. You're a divorce attorney. I don't need to tell you that.
I'm glad you said that.
And so,
not the divorce attorney, but that it's the first thing that suffers.
Yeah. And so the person that my guy loves the most is the first casualty of his transformation into this. He goes from being just ambitious to being unbearable. And that the first thing that suffers is the woman he loves the most. And I think folks that have read the book have not necessarily thought that I was going to turn into a romance author, but I guess in some ways it is a romantic story with a lot of other themes in it as well. But the love interest is important to the story.
That makes me happy. That's funny. My next question is, you're writing about, you're dealing right now with first the things that matter, and also in your next book you're dealing with religion and God, and you've dealt your whole career with the paradox of these people in life crisis trying to find religion, and you're surrounded by a community that includes people with the scientific thinking and doubt about religion and God. So it's an interesting paradox that I think it would be great to write about. Did you have you in your research read Dostoevsky's Brother Karamazov, which is the fundamental struggle, the answer to Nietzsche, and the fundamental struggle of which life, the scientific life or the life of belief, is the best life?
I haven't, but it sounds like I should. I felt like during my career, and this is early on, this is when I was still young, not anymore, but when I was, I felt like I sat on a wall. I mean, I actually imagined this in my life, and on the left side of the wall was life on this planet, and on the right side of the wall was death. And I felt like I was doing that all day long, going back and forth and back and forth. Like in the morning, a patient would die, and in the afternoon, we would save somebody with a transplant. And then later that night, we would actually have another opportunity, and it always felt like I was the one standing on the wall. And, I think that's ultimately why I turned to writing, is because I had a lot on my mind. I mean, just after doing this for 25 or 30 years, whether or not I can express it or not is up to the reader to figure out. But I just found that experience so profound that I really did want to write about it.
Mm-hmm. And are you pleased with the story? Do you think it turned out, or was that your original vision, or did it come out differently than you imagined?
No, I had a pretty good sense of how the book started, say the first part of it or the first third of it. I did not have a good sense about what happened after that. And I kind of wrote my way out of it or into it. So I wasn't really sure. And in fact, I had 3 different endings to it. And, I couldn't really decide how I was going to end the book. I hope that I ended it in a way that makes sense to the reader. But there were certainly options. And one of the interesting thing especially about writing fiction that I didn't realize is how much decision making there is. I was very used to that in my first career. And I just didn't realize it was such a big part of my second career. But you have all these, do you turn right or do you turn left? And I have I'm looking at this little bulletin board that I have with thousands of little note cards from my third book. And it's all going to be about making these decisions about which way to go. And I love that part of it. I love trying to solve the puzzle. I think it's really neat.
See, spoken like a true author right there, because that's what, someone who just market books, right? When we generally ask, the author, what made you pick this genre to write in? A lot of it is, well, it's what I like to read. But the story just came. Russell has an interesting story on how Maryland kind of came about. But the story just kind of comes about, whether it's in a dream or whatever. And you're just like, well, I thought it was going to go one way, but the characters ended up taking me a whole different direction. And I went that direction, So it's one of those things that I find to be the most fascinating when it comes to writing in fiction is you start with a game plan and you never finish what your game plan was, because it always goes like in a different direction. And like with you have 3 different endings, it's kind of what you were saying. So it's fascinating to see that in everyone's experience, and the correlation between authors, whether they see it or not. You guys all have like a commonality between it and how you kind of get started, which is fascinating.
Even though I'm knee deep in my third book, I do think, unless something really strikes me that I have to write about in nonfiction, I do think I'll return to fiction, because that process is very appealing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could see that. So I'm not a very structured person. So nonfiction, you have to be very structured and make sure that, and that one you have to cross your T's, dot your I's, make sure that you have your facts to back up and everything like that. And so it's a fascinating read. I love to read nonfiction. Russell's laughing at my daughter. I like to read nonfiction, but there's just something special about fiction. It's one of those things that really does give you that escape, whether you realize you need it or not. It's one of those like fascinating things. So I love to hear, Valerie, when you ask that question to a lot of authors, their answer, it sounds different, but if from a marketing standpoint, you all have that same like kind of commonality, which is fabulous, which is why I love working it. I'm going to mute myself before she starts throwing stuff. So continue, please.
Talk amongst yourselves.
It's children life. Russell and I both have 4 kids, so we're fine. Yeah. It's not a problem. I guess I was a little intrigued also in the story about the parents of the surgeons. Is that correct? Yes. Yep. How did that evolve into your story?
Well, aren't we just products of our parents, right? And yes. Especially I think with only children. I'm not an only child, but I know people that are. And they have this, I think, special bond. It's almost like a 3-way relationship. And in many ways, that's what happened here. And, one of them is very right-brained brain. One of them is left brain. And it's interesting to see the parents' relationship with one another. But also interesting to see the voices inside my protagonist's head. And some of the voices are his mom's and some of the voices are his father's, just like mine is, and probably yours is as well. And I wanted to show those folks as the parents as being, different kinds of people, one a scientist, neuroscientist at that, and one of them a book editor. And I think that both were inside of Joe's head throughout the whole story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And I like that you show the character development like that, where they're not influenced just by like a singular facade. It's very deep. So your characters are deep and their experiences are deep, and that makes the whole story richer because of it.
Yeah, I hope so. I think one of the more difficult things about writing fiction, especially for a first-time fiction writer, is to make sure that the characters really were three-dimensional and didn't come across as caricatures, of one or the other. And I hope I did that. His parents especially were really important, but there's people he worked with, especially the nurse. Her name is Mary in the book. She was really important to him, and I think an important character in the book too, because she was sort of his work wife. And having had experience with work wives in the past, they're so important, to what we do. The people that we work with, those that are the closest to us, either work husband or work wife, really important. And I wanted to share that relationship as well.
Yes. And it builds on the complexity of the story as well. Russell, did you have anything?
Well, I had to wait. There was a train coming up the side of my mountain, and it made too much noise, so I had to stop for a minute. What were some of the romance answer totally caught me off guard, which they always do. Is there another one that surprised you? Because I love these stories. And my next question is, did you have a character in the book that became so alive in your own mind while you were working with? And I ask this almost every week because it's happened to me, that started taking over your book and ruining your outline?
Yes. I'll tell you, my mother, who really got me involved in reading, she reads 75 to 100 books a year and is 88 years old, read one of the galleys of the book. She didn't want to read it as it came out, but read a galley of the book. And she said, well, I tell my book is in first person in the protagonist's voice. And she said, why did you use such bad language in the book? And I said, it's not me, Mom, it's my character,
I got that all the time, David.
That's who he is, so that was something that I kind of knew was coming, especially from her. But I think what happens in fiction a lot of the times is you see a character, and sometimes you see a bit of yourself in the character, and sometimes you let that character go somewhere that you would have never gone. And I think both are true with this doctor that I write about. Some of the things, I saw that, and I saw that in other people, but I didn't see where he headed. And I think that's part of the fun of it, really, is to let the characters go in a direction that you wouldn't have gone in, and maybe people you worked with wouldn't have gone in, but they could have gone in. And I think that was part of the fun.
So I have to ask this question because this was asked me in the Lancaster interview I had last week. It shocked the heck out of me, and so did my answer to them. They asked me if I was the lawyer in the book. Are you the doctor in the book? My answer was, I hope not.
Well, I have been asked that, and there's some similarities. The guy spent some time in New Orleans. He's a transplant doctor. I'm both of those things. He likes to ride his bike. I like to ride my bike. The similarities pretty much stop there. I like to think I'm a much better guy than that guy, but you'll have to ask the people that I worked with. But yeah, you take, there's a lot of lawyers that have written books. And if you listen to John Grisham speak, or, Scott Turow or whoever else, they took some of the things that they saw. But no, I'm not this character. What I can say is that the characters in the book are not science fiction. In other words, they're really not made up out of thin air. They're either sort of like or combinations of the people that I worked with. And as I was saying at the outset, I've got, the benefit of having a lot of really interesting, brilliant people that I worked with that, not surprisingly, had some flaws as well.
So where can we find your books, David?
Anywhere books are sold, independent bookstores, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, you name it. And my website, I think, has a link to all of those things.
That was the best answer, because that's the answer I would have been. Anywhere that you can look up a book is where you can find my book. Yeah. I love it. That is fabulous. Oh my goodness. No. Yes, Sandy. I know Sandy said this has been a great interview. This one has been a lot of fun, and just getting to kind of know you and behind being an author. It never fails it just never fails, you guys. Never fails. Okay, so I'm gonna do last minute comments, questions, statements while I mute myself. So
yes, please. There's a rap behind you. My last question is, I usually ask what Valerie just asked. Where can they find you? My next question is, when does your next book come out?
It's believe it or not, I have to have it in a very polished draft form by January, which keeps me up at night. And I'm told that we're looking at the fall of 2025.
Nice. Awesome. Fingers crossed for you.
Yeah, I know. It seems like a daunting task, but you can
do it. You're just going to be stressed, but you can.
We have faith in you for sure.
All those books behind me, I have to read all of them. So.
Oh, no.
You should read Dostoevsky.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, I wrote it down while we were talking. I should.
Nice. Valerie, what about you?
Oh, just so wonderful to meet you and hear your experience. And I'm just so happy that you're able to, just create all these wonderful books based on so many great experiences, because that the readers will just, I'm sure, enjoy it to the fullest potential for sure.
I appreciate that. I mean, I had the privilege, really. I mean, and I say that with all humility, the privilege of seeing some incredible things. So I'm lucky.
Nice. Well, David, oh my gosh, this has been such a fabulous interview. And I know we were all super excited about it. So I'm so thankful that Wes reached out to us to have you on here today, and for you to be able to take time out of your day, because you have a bunch of crazy stuff going on. So for you to take time out to come and talk to us, thank you so much for hanging out with us this morning.
Well, thanks for the conversation. I really appreciate it, especially the coffee shop feel to it. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Were you guys listening or watching? We hope you all have a fantastic Monday, a great rest of your week. And until next Monday, everybody, bye for now.